topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Los Angeles. Welcome to another Ask the Experts. Do I have a treat for you today? You know, we get all these letters, these emails, text from you saying, why don't you have an expert in this field or have an expert in this field? And we have received so many letters and texts saying, why don't you have somebody who does criminal law? And it's not so easy to find, let me tell you right now. But we found one of the top criminal attorneys in, I'm going to say the state of California, but he's located in the Los Angeles area. And then for our second half show, we have the top doctor in the field of weight loss, Dr. Gupta, who is, it's probably become our number one show. But I've got so many questions. Let's go to attorney Donald Matson. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing, Steve?
Yeah, I'm doing well. This is your first show, and I know people are really excited about, having a criminal attorney on. The one thing I want to start off asking you is, tell people about your firm and your background.
Okay. Well, we're located in Pasadena, California. We cover all of Los Angeles, San Diego County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, and sometimes for special occasions, we'll go up to Northern California in the Merced area, San Francisco, Oakland. Depends on where the cases come, but we handle federal cases, state court cases, including DMV type situations as well for licensing issues for people accused of DUI. And so we can cover pretty much everything and get wonderful results.
Well, I got to tell you again, we are so glad to have you. And, I wanted to start off because it's different in every state. Does criminal law include DUI or DWI?
Well, in the state of California, we call it DUI, driving under the influence.
It's amazing how every state is different. And I got to tell you, is your business different now than it was 2 or 3 years ago? And I'll tell you why in just a minute.
Well, I don't know. You might have to give me a hint about what you're inquiring about.
Well, let me say, I serve at my church, and I am a prayer counselor. And I got to tell you, in the last 2 years, we have doubled the amount of mothers, mostly mothers, some fathers too, who want prayer for their kids who are incarcerated. And it just seems like there's more people incarcerated now than ever before. Do you see that at all?
Well, what I've seen recently has been there's this big push to move things towards, particularly here in LA County, towards treatment and not incarceration. There are a substantial number of people who remain in custody for crimes that were charged pretty severely several years ago, but have since diminished in their significance. But as far as my clients, I tend to luckily be able to keep them out of jail. So
Very good. Well, I got to, I don't want to. This is not a political show, but I'm here in Florida, and we hear about California all the time, and about people being let out of jail maybe sooner than they should. Do you agree with that?
I have mixed feelings on the issue. The reason that we have a bail system, or what used to be, or it's changed recently. Now they're going to be going to what they call no bail, which means that except for very few particularly serious offenses, a offender is going to basically be cited and released. They'll get booked, but then released without any consideration as to having to post, any financial resources to ensure that they'll show up to court. That's got a lot of us Angelenos pretty scared right now. I don't know if I'm sure you've been watching the news, and
I hear that.
There's a lot of talk about persons acting with impunity because they know if they get caught one time, they will be back out on the street within hours. Part of the law is supposed to be that if they get caught a second time while out on this own recognizance, zero bail, that then they'll go back to the original system for that particular person, which would require them to post some bail in order to ensure that there's no danger to the community, that they'll stop their criminal activity, and that they will show up to court to handle their case.
Well, I got to, for the last week, we've been promoting Give Us Your Questions for the show, and we got a lot of great questions. And a lot of people, things that we just take for granted, that people just don't know about, or in the past have been afraid to ask about. One of the questions is about their job application, whether they should say that they have a criminal record, and how should they answer that. I thought that was a great question.
Oh, okay. Well, my opinion is always that a person should be as honest as possible, because the worst case scenario is you get your dream job, and then later on the employer starts looking through some papers, or maybe you have a rival at work and you're up for a promotion finally. That person digs into your background a little bit and says, oh, hey, look, this person's got a criminal record, brings it to their attention of their employer, who then looks at the job application and says, oh, the person checked all the no boxes with no explanation. And here is this criminal record. Most of the time, that employee is going to be let go for essentially lying to their employer. If a person finds themselves in the situation where they do have some type of criminal history, my first suggestion is always clean up your criminal record. There are many ways that one can get old cases. If they're felonies, you can get most of those types of felonies, other than ones that qualify as strikes, or where a person served, state prison time. Those cases can be reduced to misdemeanors if they're wobblers. And if they, wobbler is a case that could have been filed as a misdemeanor, or it could have been filed as a felony. And if a person finds that their case was filed as a felony, but it is a wobbler, after their probation is completed, after everything is done, we can go back to court, reduce that felony to a misdemeanor, and then through a process known as expungement, have a judge retroactively go back to the day that they pled guilty or no contest, withdraw their guilty plea. In its place, they enter a not guilty plea and then dismiss the case. That entitles a person to legally say on a job application that they were never convicted.
Okay.
And then LA County and most of California has instituted another thing where you can petition to seal the court file and the arrest record. That way it doesn't show up on the typical average background check. It'll still show up on LiveScan. But if somebody decides to Google you or go onto any of those person search type websites that claim to search through public records, they will not be able to find your old conviction. But a person should still be honest that they had the conviction if the job application specifically asks, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Yes or no. If you check no, and then there's a subsequent little box that says, if you checked no because of an expungement, diversion, drug treatment, etc., please explain. Then the person should explain that there was an issue years ago. A judge reviewed it years later and dismissed their case, and a person should be good to go with that.
We just got a text from Bill. He wants to know, what can I do about a warrant for my arrest because I didn't go to court when I was supposed to?
My advice on that would be, it depends on what the warrant was for. If it's for, say, failure to appear in a traffic matter, some type of infraction, unlicensed driver, something minor, good idea to go down to the courthouse as soon as possible, go to the clerk's office, the criminal clerk, provide your information and ask for a court date. What they'll do is they will then either schedule you that same day, within an hour, or set a future date for you. But in the meantime, they will quash and recall the warrant so that you don't have to worry that as you're driving home from the courthouse, you get pulled over and get taken to jail on an outstanding warrant.
Yeah, that was my next question. They won't arrest you when you're up there, will they?
No, because they always say if you come in through the front door, you're likely going to leave through the front door. If you come in through the side door, which is when you get brought in a jumpsuit, then you're going to be stuck there for a while. If the crime is something a little more serious, a misdemeanor or a felony, contact a lawyer. The lawyer will go with you. I just had that experience this morning. A family received a letter from the police department that a case had been filed against their adult son, and that there was an outstanding warrant. So we walked into the courthouse together this morning, got it brought up in front of a judge, received all the materials to be able to prepare to defend the case, recalled and quashed the warrant, set a future court date, and the client and I walked out of the courthouse together as I promised him.
We just got another text from a listener. Great show. I'm glad you finally brought a criminal attorney on. Would you please ask your expert, does he handle white collar crime?
Yes, absolutely. White collar crime can fall under the purview of state court and the county courts. It can also be a federal matter. Those are usually instances where we're talking with the financial crime. There's no violence. Usually it's kind of almost victimless, but not quite. And those are situations, embezzlement, identity theft, various types of fraud, and tax issues. But yes.
So I have to ask you this. I don't know how much you're following it, but it's like on the top of everybody's mind now. What is going on? What do you think is going to happen? I'll put it this way. What do you think is going to happen with President Trump? Because he is sure in trouble.
Well, I know they've just come down with the fourth case against him.
Yes.
I've been listening a lot to the talking heads that if he does end up getting elected, all those things might get put on to hold for a while. The Florida case is definitely probably going to be going better than the other three. There's a judge that seems to be a little more in line, that it seems to be politically motivated. I know it's not a political show, but in this country, we normally don't go after political opponents. It's unprecedented, and it's kind of a black eye on the country. But time will tell. But I know if history proves itself, again and again, former President Trump is going to be fighting these things tooth and nail.
I know he's got money, but this is going to cost him a fortune. And it seems like the more people who are involved in this, the more chance they have of somebody flipping. I would be worried about that.
Yes, absolutely. In the federal system, particularly with this, or I guess with the newest grand jury that came back with their true bill, there's 18 co-defendants. So the likelihood of somebody trying to curry some favor with the prosecutors by providing, basically becoming a witness against the others is highly likely, and people will start saving their own skin.
Don, I want to tell people that one of the purposes for this show it's to educate you. This is not an info commercial, and we always want people to take advantage of this because there's a lot of people who will go on the internet and find out who has the best website as to who they hire. Now, I'm going to date myself. It used to be whoever had the biggest, baddest yellow page ad. And that is just not the way to hire an attorney. Do you just handle criminal law, Don?
I also handle civil cases for major injuries. I like anything that puts me into the courtroom and in front of a jury because I tend to have a lot of success and like to share my skills. So.
I got you. But what I'm trying to say is that here we're presenting a great expert in the area of criminal law, and apparently you do some personal injury law too. But looks like most of your practice is criminal law. That's the kind of attorney that I want representing me. Because if you've got a criminal problem, you don't want to cut corners. This is something that's so important, and you don't have to go look and see who's got the best, website or who's related to somebody. Don is an excellent criminal attorney. He's going to be with us every month. And if you're watching, we're running his phone number right now, so you can write that down. If you're listening on radio or through the podcast, his phone number is 626-600-3437. Let's get back to our questions. Don, how does bail work?
So what bail is there's a thing called the bail schedule, and every crime is listed either specifically or as a category. And it's designed to ensure that a person who's accused of a crime, even though they're innocent until proven guilty, will show up for each of their court appearances and also not commit any crimes while they're out on bail. Example, say you have a DUI with traffic collision and injuries. It might be charged as a felony DUI. That the bail amount on that is $100,000 and up, depending on the severity of the injuries, number of victims. Most people don't have $100,000 laying around, so they have essentially two options. One is post actual property, like they get their home appraised. It has more than 100,000 equity, then file a bunch of documents with the courthouse. It puts a lien on your home, recorded with the county recorder's office. And if you don't show up to court, the state executes on that lien, which could end up forcing the sale of your home. A lot of people don't want to run that kind of risk, or they just don't have equity or property. A lot of people are renters. And if they don't have a rich grandma that's going to come up with 100,000 cash for them to take to the courthouse, they go through what's known as a bail bondsman. And a bail bondsman essentially is an underwriter of an insurance policy. They charge a fee, and that's anywhere from 5% to 10% of the total bail amount. And through their underwriting insurance, they post a policy, an insurance policy, say of $100,000 with the court, that will ensure that you show up to court. If you don't show up to court, the judge can revoke your bond and essentially take that $100,000. Now the bail bondsman is going to come after you for the balance of that $100,000.
Do you get any of that money back, Don, when you do show up?
No, you do not. If you go through a bail bondsman, the bondsman's fee is that 5% or 10%, anywhere in between there of the total bond posted. And that's the money that bondsman has earned for writing the insurance policy and filing it with the court and getting you out of jail, essentially. A lot of people ask that question. And if you think critically about it for a second, if you showed up to court, and everything resolves like it's supposed to, asking the bondsman to pay back the fee to you would essentially mean that the bondsman was working for free. So, and a lot of the bondsmen don't make it clear, I'm sure, because otherwise a lot of people might think twice about posting bail for their loved one, knowing that they won't get it back. But that's how the system works as far as right now, the certain enumerated crimes, murder, DUI, domestic violence, elder abuse, anything involving children. Those are all crimes that still require a person to post bail.
What if someone is arrested, say in the middle of the night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which I'm sure it happens all the time? Do they call you then, or do they wait till the next morning?
I frequently get calls from family members in the middle of the night that are in a panic. A lot of times they don't know what they should do. They know that a friend called to tell them that their loved one was being arrested. When I take those calls, I inform them basically of what the process is, that if they're being charged with a crime and they've already been taken away, they're going to be processed at the jail, booked, photographed. Not a lot that one can do other than to contact as an attorney, to contact the police department and let them know that the person is represented, and then that they're going to exercise their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and there's Sixth Amendment right to counsel, to have counsel present for any and all questioning, which means that the police won't ask any questions of that incarcerated person. I can then help the family make arrangements with the bail bondsman of their choice, or suggest 2 or 3 to them to basically get competitive quotes from. And then once the prospective client is out of custody, I always tell the family, feed your loved one well, let them get some rest, and when they're feeling up to it, come over to my office and let's talk about the situation and formulate a game plan.
I don't see how you do it, because there's a lot of sad stories out there, and you got to have tough skin, I guess, to be a criminal attorney.
It's definitely a unique field, but like Perry Mason said, all my clients are innocent.
Okay, I remember that. Now, there's state crimes and there's federal crimes. Do you handle both?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Currently, I've got cases in the federal system in the Southern District of California, which is San Diego, also covers Orange County, and then our Central District is the majority of Los Angeles County. Those are the 3 areas that currently I have cases in, but I can go anywhere within the state of California, and I'm licensed in the for the federal bar as well as for the California State Bar.
Our next question is, if I can get probation, which means no jail time, prison time, right? What if I violate my probation? Do I automatically go right back to jail?
It depends. As all legal questions, the answer to them is it depends. If it was crafted at the time of the sentencing that in exchange for probation, there's 2 ways that it can happen usually. One is something called a suspended sentence, which is where the person's supposed to go to jail for a year or 2, but there's a lot of mitigating circumstances that warrant that the person probably shouldn't be in jail. A judge might stick their neck out and give the person a chance on this thing called a suspended sentence. However, for the person with the suspended sentence, if they violate, and after a hearing the judge determines that the person did in fact violate, or they admit the violation, they automatically get whatever sentence was hanging over their head. That's just in the situation of suspended sentence. For a regular, just straight probation, obey all laws, stay out of trouble for 12 months or 2 years or 3 years, it's not automatic that a person gets sent to jail if they violate. It depends on the severity of the violation. Was it the same or similar crime? Was it worse than what they're on probation for? And do they have a good explanation or not? Every person is entitled to a probation violation hearing. So usually what happens if a person gets picked up on a new case, they get sent to their original court for either a probation violation hearing or a probation violation setting. Setting means that they'll set the future in the hearing in the future, and the person can circle their wagons, hire a lawyer if they didn't have one originally, and come up with an explanation for, like the most common one I see all the time is after a DUI, getting caught driving on a suspended license. A person doesn't get their license back after their DUI for, maybe they don't want to enroll in the class, or maybe they haven't yet. If they were ordered to get the ignition interlock device, the little machine you blow into in order to get the car to start. If a person doesn't go out and do that, or they don't sign up for the alcohol classes, and they get caught driving, they're now in violation for driving on a suspended license. Technically, a judge could put a person into custody for that for up to the maximum of their original crime, which would be 180 days for a typical DUI, 90 days for a wet reckless. Almost nobody ever gets that as a punishment for violating, but in egregious cases, that's technically the penalty that's available. It's always good to have a lawyer to show up for that probation violation hearing, because we can work magic.
Donald, I knew the show was going to go by fast. We've come to the end. Great show. This is your first show with us. Don will be back with us next month. Give everybody your phone number, Donald.
Okay. Easiest number is 626-792-1900.
Well, we had a lot of texts that we didn't get to. People love the show. Great job today, and we will see you next month with more SCX. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Donald. Donald Matson, 626-792-1900, and he does criminal law. Thanks again. We're going to go to break. We come back. We've got our great expert in weight loss.
The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
And we are back. We are here. We're waiting for Dr. Gupta right now to come on with us. I just want to make sure that I gave, sometimes, when you have a live show, you make a little mistake here and you make a little mistake there. I just want to make sure that he has the link to come on the show today. I know there's a lot of people waiting for him to come on. Let me just make sure that that I've got the link to him. Let's see. Dr. Gupta. This is not good radio to do this, but I don't have my Sophia with me this afternoon, and I have to
but
do
you got
it
a
myself.
rebel.
Yeah, I think he didn't see my link because he's never, ever late.
But he is a doctor, and sometimes
Yes.
doctors have emergencies.
Yes. You're so sweet, Rebel. Okay.
That's a secret. Don't tell anybody else.
Let me send this over here. Okay. So our next guest is Dr. Gupta. and he is an internal medicine doctor, MD. He's out of the Los Angeles area, and he has somewhat moved his practice into an amazing field of weight loss. And I got to tell you, he's been with us now for about 2 months. And I got to tell you that I have learned so much from him. Watch, he's going to come on any minute.
The doctor is in.
Yeah, the doctor is in. And he is just something so special. I didn't send you the link, did I?
That's okay. How's it going, Steve?
We're doing good. I just was telling everybody how blessed we are to have you, Dr. Gupta. And I want to tell people that though Dr. Gupta is in Los Angeles, he's opened up an office in Las Vegas, in Phoenix. If you have a relative, for example, let's just say in Florida, you can call Dr. Gupta, and you can do this by telemed.
Yeah.
And is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Born in several states all across the United States.
And I'm going to tell you something. Well, you're just going to bring tears to my eyes. This is something you do not want to screw about. Forget about, the appearance if you're overweight. Forget about that. We're talking about your health. And I'm going to tell you something. I know why God brought Dr. Gupta here. And he has a partner, which it turns out to be a very good friend of his, too.
Yeah.
Dr. Meeser, who specializes in children. So they are going to do children starting at age 12. And then Dr. Gupta is going to be doing the adults. But I'm going to tell you something. Everything you've happened to you in the past, meaning you took drugs or whatever you took, supplements, and they didn't work, and you're really leery about everything now, throw that out the window. And I want you to start from scratch with Dr. Gupta. His company is called Mindful. There's a reason for that, and you're going to learn why he came up with the name Mindful. Dr. Gupta, we got about 20 letters last week in the Los Angeles, actually California area, just saying they just found the show. They love your show. And so we're going to tell everybody who you are. And I know a lot of you have heard this before, but we have a lot of new people. So have that, Dr. Gupta.
Yeah. So, my name is Dr. Gupta. I'm board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. And, our clinic's called Mindful Weight Loss. And I think, I came up with the name. That's how everything started. But really, I think it encapsulates everything we do, right? And this, as you were mentioning so kindly, that this is not about like a gimmick or a supplement or any of that stuff, right? We really, really start with the fundamental issue, right? Which is a function of our bodies in this world, right? This food environment, all these companies, they're spending every day trying to get calories in us every second of the day. And we have to really understand that, right? So the reason 70% of us struggle with this issue is not because we're lazy, not because of all these things that we always hear every single day, right? There are fundamental reasons for that. And you have to really, really understand that to be able to figure out interventions that work, right? We got to understand the nature of the problem. Otherwise, often the solutions that we try, all these diets, all these supplements, all this stuff, all these devices, everything, it just never works because it doesn't take into account what's actually going on.
I think if people would use a little common sense, you don't think of it this way, but to walk into, let's say you walk into a GNC store and you say, I want to lose weight. They don't really ask you any questions.
Yeah.
you know, we have this and we have this and we have this. See, Dr. Gupta, as a doctor, when you, let's say if you come in and you see an internist, they're going to sit down with you normally and do what's called a history and physical.
Yes.
That's the only way they can treat you. Well,
Yeah.
it's the same thing with weight loss.
Yeah.
He has to learn about you and make you feel what you do, Dr. Gupta, is you make people feel more comfortable and at ease going through, because it's not easy losing weight.
No, and people have seen a lot of people with this, and unfortunately, our healthcare system is such that actually people, a lot of times providers, physicians, and they only get 15 minutes. We supercharge that process. We spend an hour getting to know you at the very beginning, right? And really, in a granular level, figure out everything that's going on in your life to actually help and figure out what will work, right? And so, too often our patients, there've been so much judgment, even from other medical professionals, because we're all conditioned with this willpower narrative, and we all think that this is some function of our strength, our character, all of that, and what we, teach our patients is that's all BS, right? This instead, we start with that self-compassion and understand what is going on, the biological nature of this. And after getting to know somebody, how their jobs are, how their commutes are like, what their relation with their partner is, all the million of things that go on in our days, that's the only way we can come up with something that actually works.
Dr. Gupta, think about it. If not everybody likes working out.
Yeah.
And you understand that.
Yes.
That's not going to kill the program for you when you have to throw your hands up. So you work around that.
Yeah. And, we don't actually stress physical activity at the beginning, right? Because it makes no sense. If someone doesn't have that going on, that habit in their lives, it makes no sense to do, for instance, the cardiology recommendation of 150 minutes per week, right? That just is not it's not realistic. And we can tell everybody until we're blue in our face, but no one's going to do it. Instead, we start where people are, right? And we make the smallest changes, right? We focus a lot on the things we can do easier, right? The nutritional stuff we can do that work in the context of people's life. And only then, once we start that, then we can start exploring ways to incorporate maybe some walking or some, resistance training. But again, only in ways that work, right? Because often, a lot of times people tell me, for example, oh, I should get up and work out, right? And it's saying, okay, what's your morning like? They're like, oh, I have to answer 5 emails or 50,000 emails and take my kids and make their lunch and do this and this. Clearly, there's no mental load in that morning to be able to do this, right? So we have to, again, another example of how we got to see what a person's life is like before we can figure out what works.
Do you see more females still than males?
I think in general, yes, but we see a lot of males as well, right? I mean, there's a special unfortunately menopause, for example. I always tell everybody there's nothing that slows your metabolism down like menopause. So we do see a lot of perimenopausal women and everything, but we see a lot of males as well. I mean, 70% of us struggle with this. This isn't limited to any particular type of person, right? We all struggle with this issue because we all live in this food environment.
Food is really an addiction, isn't it?
Yes, 100%, especially the foods that are designed around us, right? So a lot, some of the medications we use, they're the same type of medications that are used for opiates and cigarettes and alcohol, right? Because it all goes through the same pathways in our brain. So that's the key. And these companies, it's well documented, they alter the formula of their salt, sugar, fat, and there's a variable they call mouthfeel, which is exactly how it feels in our mouths, right? To maximally trigger those dopamine receptors. So Frito-Lay's, McDonald's, PepsiCo, all these companies spend all their time figuring out how to do that, right? How to make us want it more and more and more and more.
Unbelievable. Is it like fighting in a battle when it comes to hormones and losing weight? I mean, especially with women, when their hormones aren't working properly, does it make it harder with your program, or do you make it easier for them?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, right? Like, there's all these factors that contribute, right? But there's only a few levers that we can actually intervene in. And I basically have like 5 pillars. It's how much we eat, what we eat, sleep, stress, physical activity. So those are the 5. Everything, is around, and everything contributes to the different levels that people, that are contributing to this issue. But still, those 5 basics are the same. And those are kind of the things we can modulate. But again, in ways that actually work for people, right? So that's the key point I say like a billion times, because it's just so important, right? It's not asking people like, oh, let's start running marathons and eating lettuce all the time or something, right? It's literally, how can we optimize 100, 150 calories in your life in a way that works for you?
Is it with men? What if you have low testosterone? Does that keep you from losing weight?
It can affect you in different ways. I mean, testosterone is mixed, because weight loss itself can increase your testosterone, right? And then we have, like as we incorporate more resistance training, that's a way that can increase your testosterone, right? So we do a lab panel on everybody. And if there is something we, intervene on or modulate, we do. But again, like, I think the basics are what really is the high yield things that we intervene on.
What about stress? Somebody wants to know. Oh, I want to get this question. This is a good question. Does muscle burn fat?
It's basically building muscle increases our metabolism. So you end up using more energy. So in that way, we do, burn fat, in that if we have a caloric deficit, if we're not, basically, if our body, we have to get in a caloric deficit to lose weight, like to lose fat, right? And so that deficit comes at different points. If we have more muscle, our body burns more energy. So then to provide that energy, we would lose fat. Basically, it's the same thing, right? It's not, the physiological mechanism is not exactly muscle burns fat, but the point of that question is 100% true. Like, resistance training is very important. The only thing in the world that increases our metabolism is building muscle.
We just got another text in. It sounds like your program is taking baby steps.
Yes.
If that is the case, does that mean you would lose weight slower because of the baby steps?
So these baby steps can be surprisingly effective. It doesn't feel like it, but it can be surprisingly effective. Our metric is still, we try to aim for 2 pounds a week. That's a maximum. We don't ever want to lose more. But how methodologically, that we think about it is every time you come in, we see what's the rate of weight loss. Is it like 2 pounds? Is it not? If it's not, how can we continue to optimize things to get to that rate? That's basically how we think about it.
So, Dr. Gupta, there are so many programs out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of national programs out there.
Yes.
There's so many things out there that you have to compete with.
Yeah.
Why is your program so much better?
So what I think is the key is that focus on self-compassion and really, really understanding without any judgment. Like, anyone I hire, this is just really important. This is like my number 1 criteria for hiring people. You can't even have like a millimeter of judgment for anybody, right? Because we really got to start where people are and see what their life is like and intervene based on that. And I haven't seen a lot of programs, everyone I've seen usually is people come in and they tell you what to do. You do this.
They tell you what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we really start with is we listen. right? We really listen and we hear, and like what people are saying, what people are like not even saying, right? What they're saying in between the words that they're saying, right? Like figuring out where those pain points are, figuring out where we can intervene, figuring out how we can make their life easier, right? Like often we think that, oh, like I'm going to go to a weight loss clinic or whatever. It's all about trying harder. I need to work harder. I need to do this. I need to stop like being lazy or whatever. Like we throw all that out the window, right? Instead, we hear people and we say, okay, let's figure out how we can rearrange something just to make it actually easier for your life. Because the simple truth of the matter is, if it's hard, you're not going to do it for a while. It has to be easy. It's the only way to make this work.
You know, we've talked about this on the air many a times, Dr. Gupta, that people will lose weight, and then once they're successful, they go backwards.
Yeah.
And they end up gaining weight. How do you keep people from doing that?
So what we advocate, what we teach, right, is all about coming back. Okay, so this process is the thing that we try to practice as we keep working with our patients, right? So it's not about perfection. Perfection's impossible and it's destructive, right? So what happens often is people are doing something, you know, patients' metabolism slows, people lose weight, and then they go on vacation, right? And then they come back.
Yes.
Like, right? Then it slips away. And then they come back and they feel all that guilt and shame and they make it so hard. And it's hard to keep like trying to go back, and they keep trying to go back to the thing that was working before and doesn't work, right? Instead, how we try to approach it is say everything's 80%, not 100. And my line is if you lose weight on vacation, if you lose too much weight on vacation, you're not doing it right, right? Go on vacation, enjoy it. When you come back, let's practice coming back. Okay, that moment of coming back, it's its own thing. And we practice that, right? And so in the future, inevitably, life happens. The things we built up, you know, break, the systems we built up. And then, okay, we practice coming back in a way that works now in this new aspect of your life, how your life is different now, right? So I think the key way to do that is instead of like finding one thing and doing it forever, it's this process of finding the thing that works, practicing that self-compassion to see all the things that are going on in your life and continuously evolving and growing and changing. That's basically how that way of thinking is the thing that we try to implement.
Well, we know that stress pops up.
Yes.
And stress can cause you, I guess, your eating patterns change.
Yes.
So what do you do for a person who all of a sudden goes for a very stressful part in their life? What do you do to keep them on track?
So again, we start with listening, right? We figure out, and I always say nothing's off the table, right? So we use, I'm very comfortable. I use all the medications for anxiety, depression, or whatever, something that can help medically. But also, like I had a patient the other day, we were talking about, okay, let's talk about, like, can you delegate stuff? What's your organization system, right? Like, how can we get some more stuff? And some people, their job is so miserable, right? And I understand this is delicate. We all need like a job, access to resources, but let's start, like, maybe the answer is let's start, like, at least go on Indeed and start looking for other jobs, right? Like, the more I'm doing this, the more it's structural. And a lot of times when people have like really miserable jobs, for example, and you go somewhere, you spend 8 hours of your day in that stressful, miserable place, it's like we can do things on the margins, but often it's impossible in those situations, right? Without changing the fundamental nature of these things. So you wouldn't think that you go to a weight loss doctor, but you're talking about like career advice, right? But that might be the answer to that solution.
Dr. Gupta, here's a really good question.
Sure.
I think this is a female, and she has lost her job. It's very tough trying to find a job, which makes it very stressful. Do you suggest waiting till I find a job to make an appointment with you? Or should I go ahead and start now, even though my life is very stressful?
Well, taking into account all the financial considerations, of course, that's everyone has to decide for themselves in terms of the cost or whatever. But still, we treat people wherever they are in their lives, right?
So her losing her job, which is stressful,
yes,
that's not going to, she can still come sign up with you now. It's not going to hurt her progress by going through stress right now.
No, because we listen, we work with people through it, and we try to come up with tools to help them through that process, right? We cannot avoid suffering in our life.
Right.
Number one principle of being a human, right? Being a living creature in this world. And so what we can do is, in any way that is possible, with compassion, with, a little bit of creativity, help people in whatever stage they are to try to, compared to where they are right now, help alleviate some of that suffering, which will help with weight, which will help with everything else.
Well, I got to tell you, this always happens to us. We're out of time. Dr. Gupta, give everybody your phone number and your website.
Yeah, of course. It's 310-220-4543. Again, 310-220-4543. Text us anytime. We'll get right back to you. The website's mindfulweightloss.com. And then we have a promotion for all your listeners, Steve. It's $100 off a month for the first 3 months. So just message us anytime. We'll get you signed up.
Dr. Gupta, I love you, bro.
Dr.
Gupta will be back with us again this month, covering the California area. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve.
And we'll see you all next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.